Today I'm going to show you the wavy rib lace pattern that I've included in the Rebound Shawl section 9 in clue 3. I also am creating a shawl pattern that is all of this pattern with a great edging that I can't show you right now. I believe that one's going to be called River Bend. This is a pattern that has a repeat of 10 stitches plus 5, and it is a 12-row repeat. There are yarn overs on both sides of the lace, which a lot of people think makes lace more difficult. It does. However, if you get used to reading your knitting and work on what stitches should look like as you're working them, then it makes it a lot easier. I am not a huge fan of using lifelines. I don't like taking the time to do it, but that also can help you out if you have an error. Usually I'll keep my row counter attached to my work, but so that it doesn't bang around, I'm going to take it off. I'm going to show you a couple of repeats from each row, and then I'm going to stop the camera and come back for the next row so that this video is not too long. All right, so row 1 of the repeat. Oh, and by the way, isn't that just beautiful? I just fell in love with this. It's a contemporary lace design, and I really have enjoyed it. The first row of the repeat is probably the easiest one. I'm working my edge stitches. I've got a couple extra edge stitches on each end, just so you know. The repeat begins with a slip, slip, knit, yarn over, knit 5. Knit 2 together, yarn over, knit 1. Notice how when you end the repeat, you're right in the center of a rib here. So again, row 1, slip, slip, knit, yarn over, knit 5, 3, 4, 5, knit 2 together, yarn over, knit 1. I'll be back for row 2. Working on row 2. I've done the first repeat to get you into the middle of it. All right, so this repeat on row 2 of the wavy rib lace pattern is purl 1, yarn over, purl 1. Notice how the second purl 1 is into a yarn over from the previous row. Purl 2 together, 1, 2, 3. Also notice that none of those stitches were into a yarn over. Purl 2 together. The second part of that purl 2 together, I'm going to back up to show you, is a yarn over from the previous row. If you keep track of what these look like on each row as you're working them, then you're less likely to make a mistake. Purl 2 together, over, purl. That ends the repeat. There's also a purl stitch at the beginning of the next one. Purl, yarn over, purl. Notice how the second part of that, the second purl, is into a yarn over. Purl 2 together, no yarn over after the purl 2 together, 1, 2, 3. Purl 2 together, second stitch is the yarn over from the previous row, yarn over, purl. All right, I'll finish it out and be back for row 3. All right, so the next surprise installment on error correction. I went back and read my knitting on the previous row that I knew, or I thought I had done correctly, row 1. And I read through it and I could not find an error. I counted my stitches to make sure that I had the correct number. And a quick note about that, in every repeat for this particular lace, it's usually true, but not always, when you're working in a rectangular shape, there will be one increase for every decrease. In this case, we have 2 increases in each repeat, 2 yarn overs, and 2 decreases, either SSK or knit 2 together on the right side, or purl 2 together, or purl 2 together through the back loop on the wrong side. We haven't seen that second one yet. So I went ahead, because my stitch count was right and my last row looked right, I went ahead and did row 2 again, and I am just finishing that up. So hold your breath. Purl 1 over, purl 1, purl 2 together, 1, 2, 3, purl 2 together, over, 1. That ends the repeat, and then I've got the edge stitches, and yay, it works. Here we go. So sometimes you never really find what the exact error was, but as long as you get it back to the last good point and get started again, it all works out. So, all right, so a slight rewind here. I want to explain it to you because this hopefully will help you with correcting errors if you have them when you are working on this lace. I got to the end of row 2 and a wrong side row, and I didn't have the correct number of stitches. So the first thing that you do when something like that happens is go back and read your knitting. I don't have that particular row here because I've taken it out, but you read your knitting to see if you can find where the mistake was. So since this is row, well, make it back to, pretend I made the error on row 1. I would go through and read my knitting. I've got my edge stitch, or stitches in this case, SSK over 2, 4, 5, knit 2 together over 1. That's 1 repeat, and you keep on doing that across until you find the mistake. And you would mark that, and then you can just tink back stitch by stitch to that mistake and keep going correctly. I still haven't found my mistake on this. When I do, I'll come back and show you. Row 3, and I'm going to change my row counter, usually attached to my work, to row 3. All right. Oh, one quick note I meant to say. Tinking is when I like to call it unknitting, but a lot of people call it tinking. And I recently heard that the reason it's called tinking is because it's knit spelled backwards, and that had never occurred to me. I thought that was so funny. So, little added bonus. All right, so row 3, you always start the right side rows out with your edge stitch, SSK, over. That every single row starts like that. So yarn over. And on row 3, we then knit 3 stitches, knit 2 together, 1, 2, over 1. So the first SSK is the first decrease. It's followed immediately by a yarn over, so you can tell that those are balanced. But then the knit 2 together that comes a little bit later in that repeat doesn't have its matching yarn over till a couple stitches later. So just something to note and be aware of, because they're not always right together. So the repeat starts again, SSK. The second part of the SSK is the yarn over from the row 2. Yarn over, 1, 2, 3, knit 2 together, knit, knit, then the matching yarn over, knit 1. All right, the next thing I wanted to tell you about was when working lace, especially if you've got a repeat and that you're going to be working over and over again, getting a little chant going for yourself can really help.